There is a truth about relationships that most advice avoids because it is uncomfortable. It challenges the stories people like to tell themselves about love, loyalty, and effort. You may have seen it play out again and again. The woman who gives endlessly, who supports without question, who sacrifices her time, her energy, and often her identity, is rarely the one who is deeply desired. She is dependable, she is safe, she is appreciated, and yet she is often overlooked, emotionally sidelined, or quietly taken for granted. At the same time, there is another kind of woman. She is not always the most agreeable. She does not organize her life around pleasing someone else. She guards her time carefully. She has clear boundaries. There is a calm confidence in the way she moves through the world. And somehow, men do not merely love her. They become deeply attached to her presence. They think about her when she is not there. They measure other connections against her. Losing her feels unthinkable. This difference has nothing to do with beauty, luck, or moral superiority. It is not about being better or worse. It is psychological. It is rooted in how desire is formed and sustained in the unconscious mind. More specifically, it is about the difference between comfort and fascination. Comfort creates stability. Fascination creates devotion. A man can love someone because life feels easier with her. He can stay for years out of habit, loyalty, or shared history. But devotion, the kind that endures and intensifies over time, comes from a deeper place. It comes from an internal experience that feels larger than logic. That experience is not chosen, it is activated. To understand this, we have to step away from surface-level dating advice and enter the terrain of depth psychology. We are not talking about tactics, appearances, or performances. We are talking about how the unconscious mind forms attachment and meaning. Psychological research has long shown that every man carries an inner feminine image within his psyche. This image is not a literal person. It is a symbolic pattern made up of emotion, intuition, creativity, longing, and meaning. It acts as a bridge between his conscious identity and his deeper inner life. Throughout his life, he looks for reflections of this image in the world around him, often without realizing it. When a man feels an immediate, intense pull toward a woman that goes beyond rational explanation, it is often because this inner image has been activated. He is not responding only to who she is. He is responding to what she awakens inside him. This is why obsession does not come from effort. It comes from resonance. In the early stages of attraction, a man unconsciously projects this inner image outward. The woman becomes a symbolic screen onto which meaning, desire, and fantasy are cast. This is why she appears extraordinary in his eyes. She feels rare, almost unreal. Being near her brings a sense of wholeness, not because she completes him, but because she reflects parts of himself he has not fully accessed. This phase feels intoxicating. It is also fragile. What destroys this dynamic is not time, it is overexposure. When a woman tries to secure connection by explaining everything, revealing everything, and emotionally leaning too heavily too soon, the projection collapses. Mystery disappears. The symbolic screen is replaced by raw, unfiltered reality. Instead of fascination, the man experiences emotional demand. Instead of inspiration, he feels pressure. The unconscious responds by withdrawing. The issue is not vulnerability itself. Vulnerability without containment becomes emotional noise. True intimacy does not require constant disclosure. It requires pacing, structure, and self-possession. This is where the core principle comes in. Autonomy that remains visible but never fully accessible. A woman who sustains fascination does not disappear, but she does not make herself fully available either. She has an inner world that does not revolve around someone else's approval. Her emotional life is rich, but it is self-regulated. Her presence feels grounding, not consuming. This quality is not coldness, it is containment. Containment means being able to experience emotion without needing someone else to absorb or fix it. When emotions arise, they are processed internally first. Words are chosen deliberately, not reactively. Expression comes from clarity, not urgency. This distinction matters more than most people realize. Emotional dumping signals dependence. Emotional clarity signals strength. A man does not feel drawn towards someone who needs him to manage her inner state. He feels drawn towards someone whose emotional depth feels stable and self-directed. That stability creates trust. That trust allows admiration to grow. Another critical element is sovereignty. Sovereignty means that a woman's life has its own center of gravity. Her time, interests, goals, and routines are meaningful to her independent of a relationship. When connection is added, it enhances her life. It does not replace it. When someone reorganizes their entire existence around another person, attraction slowly drains away. Devotion cannot grow where there is no gravity of self. A woman who respects her own time, protects her energy, and maintains commitments to herself communicates value without saying a word. Her presence feels chosen, not guaranteed. That distinction changes everything. Behavioral dynamics matter here as well. When inconsistency, avoidance, or lack of effort appears, many people respond by explaining, negotiating, or emotionally pleading. This response unintentionally lowers perceived value. It positions the speaker as someone seeking approval rather than embodying standards. A more effective response is energetic reflection. Reflection does not involve punishment or manipulation, it involves alignment. Positive behavior is met with warmth and openness. Disengaged behavior is met with calm withdrawal. No lectures, no chasing, just consistency. This approach allows the other person to feel the consequences of their actions without being attacked or managed. It restores balance without drama. Another misunderstood concept is sacrifice. Cultural narratives often frame sacrifice as proof of love. In reality, excessive self-sacrifice often erodes desire. When someone consistently places themselves last, they teach others to do the same. Self-investment, on the other hand, communicates worth. Caring for one's health, time, appearance, and growth is not selfish. It is foundational. People are naturally drawn to what is well-maintained and respected. Distance also plays a role. Constant availability flattens desire. Space allows longing to form. Absence creates reflection. This is not about games. It is about allowing the natural rhythms of attachment to function. When presence is balanced with absence, connection deepens instead of suffocating. Finally, fascination is sustained when expectations remain high. Not rigid or judgmental, but clear. When excellence is embodied and mediocrity is not reinforced, growth is encouraged naturally. Inspiration emerges not from pressure, but from example. The goal of these principles is not control, it is alignment. They filter rather than force. They reveal who is capable of meeting depth with depth. And here is the quiet truth beneath it all. When someone becomes deeply rooted in their own life, the need to be chosen fades. Desire becomes a byproduct rather than a pursuit. That inner fullness is what ultimately sustains attraction. Real power does not come from being needed. It comes from being whole. That is where fascination begins. There is a subtle danger in understanding psychological power without understanding responsibility. Any principle that touches the unconscious can either elevate or corrupt, depending on how it is used. This is why intention matters more than technique. When emotional distance, self-focus, or withdrawal is used as a way to punish, dominate, or feed ego, the dynamic collapses into something unhealthy. Fascination without respect does not turn into devotion. It turns into instability. Obsession built on manipulation eventually becomes resentment. True magnetism never needs cruelty. The principles described here are not tools for control, they are filters. They reveal character rather than forcing behavior. When applied with integrity, they invite growth. When applied with ego, they repel quality. It is important to understand this distinction clearly. Emotional restraint is not emotional absence. Withdrawal is not rejection. Boundaries are not threats, they are signals of self-respect. When these signals are authentic, they create clarity. When they are performative, they create confusion. One of the hardest realities to accept is that no amount of self-mastery can awaken depth in someone who does not possess it. A person may respond temporarily to mystery or distance, but if there is no inner capacity for emotional maturity, inspiration will not take root. This is not failure, it is information. When someone fades in response to standards, It is not proof that the standards were wrong. It is proof that alignment was missing. Attraction is not meant to be negotiated. It is meant to be mutual. Letting someone walk away is often the most self-respecting action available. It preserves dignity and creates space for connection that does not require shrinking. Another misunderstanding is the belief that being inspiring means tolerating stagnation. Support does not mean accommodation of potential avoidance. Encouragement does not mean rewarding minimal effort. The most impactful presence is one that quietly invites others to rise, not through pressure, but through example. When excellence is embodied rather than demanded, it becomes contagious. This does not exhaust healthy partners. It energizes them. People often ask whether unconditional acceptance is the highest form of love. In practice, unconditional acceptance without expectation becomes complacency. Growth requires friction. Meaning requires direction. A relationship that inspires devotion is one where both individuals feel called upward, not carried. There is also a paradox worth acknowledging. Many people begin this journey hoping to become unforgettable in someone else's eyes. But along the way, something shifts. Self-investment creates inner stability. Boundaries create peace. Purpose creates fulfillment. At a certain point, validation stops being necessary. This is not indifference, it is freedom. When a person no longer needs to be chosen, they become magnetic. Their presence feels grounded. Their attention feels valuable because it is not freely given to anyone who asks for it. This is where devotion, when it appears, feels like an addition rather than a rescue. Psychological depth was never meant to be used to secure attachment at any cost. Its purpose is individuation, becoming a complete, integrated human being. Relationships reflect this inner state. They do not replace it. When inner emptiness exists, relationships mirror it through neglect or imbalance. When inner fullness exists, relationships mirror it through respect and commitment. The other person is never the source. They are the reflection. This is why chasing admiration always fails, and self-alignment always works. Desire responds to presence, not pursuit. Being unforgettable is not a performance. It is a practice. It is the daily choice to protect one's energy, honor one's standards, and remain loyal to one's own life. When that choice becomes consistent, attraction stops being a strategy and becomes a side effect. At that point, devotion, if it comes, is genuine, and if it does not, nothing essential is lost. That is the quiet strength behind true magnetism. Not control, not sacrifice, not perfection, but sovereignty.